Radio Raheem with the chairman, Bob Arum, at Madison Square Garden, where so many fights have happened, but we're on the anniversary of your first fight here. Muhammad Ali, you want to talk to me about that night?
Yeah, that was some night. Ali had been unable to fight in New York because they had pulled his license after he was convicted of draft evasion. And finally, Judge Mansfield, the United States District Judge, ruled that despite the conviction, the New York State Athletic Commission couldn't deny Ali a license, and so we arranged for him to fight a top heavyweight, Oscar Bonavena, and that took place how many years ago? It was 47 years ago tonight.
Jeez, yeah, that fight's way older than me even. Well, Bob, now that we've come 47 years full circle, you're back here. You have a storied fight that fans have been waiting to see, clamoring to see. When you put these two guys together, did you know that this was going to be one of those like historic plot point moments in boxing history?
Of course I did. That's why I put them together. Because, I mean, it doesn't take a great genius. You know, I've been around boxing for so many years. When you put two guys in, two guys who've won 2 Olympic gold medals each, you're doing something special.
Now, the fighter on either side of you have both been represented by you. Obviously, Rigondeaux used to be a top-ranked fighter, and now Lomachenko is a top-ranked fighter. What was it like dealing with Guillermo? What are the feelings there? Talk to me about your relationship now and working with this fight.
Well, Rigondeaux, for me, was always terrific. The problem with Rigondeaux was his style, which was the Cuban style. You rack up points early, and then you coast on your lead, you stink out your opponent. That doesn't make for particularly good television, and I couldn't sell his fights to either of the two networks. So when I couldn't do anything, then maybe it was me that was holding him back, and so I arranged for a release for him, and he went on his way. But I never, ever thought that he was other than a really superior talent and a great fighter. As far as Lomo is concerned, he is very, very fan-friendly because while he's a great defensive fighter, he is always looking and probing for ways to destroy and knock out his opponent. And he isn't satisfied just winning a fight. He wants to destroy his opponent or make his opponent quit.
Fight fans are always happy when fights get made. We don't care where the fights are being shown, especially if we don't have to pay extra for them. So now, you've had quite an opinion about HBO, even Showtime. Can you tell me the difference in working with ESPN and how we can get Rigondeaux on ESPN, but we couldn't get a fight with HBO? Mix up these different networks for me and talk to us about the business of how we get these fights made on these networks.
Well, ESPN has given us a schedule, so now we're like a regular sport. We know what days we have. It's not fighter specific, and we can plan a schedule. Also, the people at ESPN rely greatly on our views, the views of our matchmakers who've been in this business a long time. And so it is easy to make matches that we feel are matches that the public wants to see and that we as boxing promoters want to present. Now, to some extent on Showtime, Al Heyman has the same type of relationship, and I think Stephen Espinoza, and rightly so, relies upon Al to present him with good fights that he can put on the network. As far as HBO is concerned, unfortunately, they are saddled with an inexperienced executive who been in this business for a very short time and thinks that he knows more than anybody who's ever been in the business. Well, let's see how that works out. But again, what we are able to do is, have dates firm that we know we can put great fights on, and an entity and executives who rely on us to put on the best possible fights.
You mentioned Al Heyman. You're making some big noise here at ESPN, obviously, with this fight. The Pacquiao-Horn fight did great numbers. Are you able to work with Heyman fighters? Can we get fights like Crawford and Errol Spence in the future? I mean, it's going to require that these networks and promoters work together. Is that a possibility?
Well, let's not look at promoters particularly. Let's look at networks. With over at Showtime, Espinosa is a very smart guy, and his boss is the head of CBS, a big fight fan. He's a good friend of mine, Les Moonves. And Moonves will make these fights happen. And they can't all be on ESPN, nor can they all be on Showtime. So there's something called trade. I mean, the big boys, whether it's CBS, ABC, Fox, ESPN, have no problem when it comes to college football, arranging who gets which game and so forth. It should be the same, and it will be the same, I think, with Showtime, CBS, and Top Rank, that if they need a top-ranked fighter to fight on Showtime, we'll make it available, and they'll make available a fighter that fights traditionally on Showtime or CBS, make him available to ESPN. I think we'll work very, very well with them. At least that's my hope.
Up here, you talked about Jeff Horn's fight on Wednesday. We talked about Crawford possibly being an opponent for the winner of that fight. Well, I didn't hear Manny Pacquiao's name mentioned. I read somewhere that maybe he comes back in April. What's Pacquiao's plan? What's your plan for him? Can you give me an update on his situation?
Well, Manny Pacquiao's plan revolves so much around the politics. The Philippine politics, how he's needed by the president. I would like for him to come back in April. I'm working on that. Whether I can accomplish that or not, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, again, Pacquiao is more so a politician senator than he is a boxer. So whether we can now put in a boxing match, I'm not sure. We'll try.
Does he come back and challenge for a title? I mean, obviously the Horn fight was somewhat disputed by fans and critics alike. What's the appropriate fight for Pacquiao's return?
Well, I think we'll give him a fight against a top welterweight, where we're confident or hope that Manny will be successful, and then have him fight the Horn Corcoran Terence Crawford winner in the fall.
And lastly, Bob, there's one guy who's out there who you have such a long history with, talking about he's going to come into boxing, possibly buy the whole thing out. He's talking about taking over boxing now that he sold his portion of the UFC. Obviously, I'm talking about Dana White. What are your thoughts about Dana White's already his big fight that he had, and now talking about coming and taking over the sport?
Well, I don't think Dana White had a big fight. I mean, Mayweather was the fighter. McGregor was the UFC guy. I think Dana White's worried because UFC is cratering. We're getting our ratings head-to-head against them are just enormous. So the UFC is looking to expand into boxing because they, I think, know that boxing is the more viable sport. At first he was saying, hey, boxing is dead, it's old, only old people watch it. Well, we go head-to-head with UFC, and we kill them in that demographic. Young people watch boxing more so than they watch mixed martial arts. Now, if Dana wants to come into boxing, good. The more people in boxing, the more people spending money doing good fights, the better it is for everybody. Everybody. I wish, when Showtime does a fight, and I root for that fight. I hope that it's a good fight because I want to see Showtime stay in boxing. They're good for boxing. As long as people are good for boxing and do good fights and don't try to hurt the other guy, then there's a place for him. You can see I'm leaving out HBO because I think the guy who's now running sports on HBO has one mission, and that's to hurt us. Now, why would he try to hurt us? Why would he, in the face of this historic fight here in Madison Square Garden, why would he put a card on in Las Vegas where nobody is there this weekend to go against us? Why? What is the purpose? Why would he spend his subscribers' money to put on a fight show like that against ours? Trying to counter program. We're not his competition. You can watch ESPN for free. You can't watch HBO for free. People have to pay $15 a month, And if they think that Games of Thrones, which is running out, is worth $15 a month, let them pay it. But hey, keep away from us. If you're going to be in boxing, help boxing, put on good shows, stop crapping around because you think you know better than anybody else. He doesn't. He's an inexperienced executive who shouldn't be in that position. Now, I would never say that about Stephen Espinoza, who I don't have a great relationship with. We've, competed and so forth, but Espinoza's a real executive.
Radio Raheem with Bob Arum, chairman of the board at Top Rank at Madison Square Garden. We cannot wait to see Guillermo Rigondeaux face Vasil Lomachenko at this Garden on Saturday night. Thank you for putting that fight together, and thank you for the time, Bob. As always, Radio Raheem with Bob Arum.